Last time we were together, we saw where Jesus had called his first disciples to be fishermen of, what did we say? What was Jesus calling his disciples to be? Fishermen of men. Do you remember the occupation that the first disciples had to give up in order to follow Jesus? You remember? Yes, they gave up their occupation of fishers. Those disciples laid down their fishing nets, and two of them even had to follow Jesus and leave their father. So in our lesson today, Jesus will explain further to his disciples what it means to follow him and what it will cost him. Again, while I am presenting the lesson, I will be looking down frequently to my notes to make sure that I have everything for you. Okay, so we will learn that to follow Jesus, we must deny ourselves, make sacrifices, which means we must give up something in order to gain something better and more valuable. So, to help us understand this lesson better, I have something to show you that will give us a clear picture of what it means to sacrifice, to be willing to deny ourselves in order to gain something more valuable. You know, when I was a child, we used to play a game called Follow the Leader. And here is the picture. See if I can bring a little closer. And in this picture, you see there is a leader out front. It's a girl, and she has followers behind her. So, in this game, one player is chosen to be the leader. He or she begins moving around with actions that the rest of the players must copy or imitate. Anything the leader does, the others must follow. So notice in the picture, everyone is behind the leader and not in front. In order to follow the leaders, others must observe or watch carefully what the leader does and do exactly what the leader does. If the leader goes right, the followers must go right. If the leader goes left, the followers would have to go left. This game also reminds me of another game we used to play, and quite sure many of you played it. It's called Simon Says. In Simon Says, there is also a leader, and the followers have to do everything the leader does. So, let's give some examples of Simon Says. All right, you ready? I'm going to sit back a little bit. All right, I'm going to be Simon, and you will be my followers. All right, here we go. Simon says, raise your hand. Simon says, tap your shoulder. Simon says, clap your hand. Simon says, put your hands down. Simon says, did you do that? That was a little harder, wasn't it? Well, sometimes following the leader can be hard. And sometimes we may make mistakes. And we have to try again until we get it right. Following a leader may mean we have to be corrected. Just like your parents who love you have to correct you. What does it mean to deny ourselves? Well, let's look at another demonstration. I have a picture here to show you. How many of you know or have seen this person on TV? All right. What is his name and what do you think he does? All right. Did you say this is LeBron James? That is correct. This is LeBron James. Well, you know whose team he's on by the name on his jersey. The name on his jersey, and it says Lakers. So just like he wears a name on his jersey, we have to be identified by the name that we represent. You know, LeBron James played for other teams before he signed up with the Los Angeles Lakers. He is one of the greatest basketball players of all time. But how did he get to be one of the greatest basketball players? Well, just like all great athletes, he had to make sacrifices. Well, what kind of sacrifices do they have to make? Well, they have to deny themselves by putting in long hours practicing and training. They have to get enough sleep. They have to eat a healthy diet because they can't carry a lot of weight on. They can't be overweight. They have to set goals and be disciplined. And discipline means to be involved in an activity or exercise or a set of training that helps develop or improve your skills. They have to listen to their coaches. They have to avoid distractions, and they have to exercise. So an athlete does all this sacrificing to gain something. Well, what do you think they are trying to gain? Or what do you think they are working very hard to gain? Well, let's see. Many athletes train hard to obtain a trophy or a medal, a ring, and a big paycheck. So I have one other thing to show you to help us understand the lesson. What do you think this is? What's going on in this picture? Well, this is a college graduate. College graduates also have to make sacrifices to gain something of value. They have to study and set goals. They have to be disciplined. They have to complete homework assignments. They have to attend classes, listen to their professors, give up or deny themselves of going out with friends and maybe partying. They have to pass exams. They have to avoid distractions. Many times other people will try to hinder them by saying things like, well, you know, man, it doesn't take all of that. You don't have to put in that many hours. But the college student work hard to gain something. What do you think that is? Well, let's see. College students work hard to gain a college diploma and to have a successful career. So all of that hard work pays off. Now, all these things that the athlete and the college graduate earn for their hard work are good. But when you think about it, the rewards that they earn have value in this present world, but as far as eternity is concerned, it doesn't have eternal value, eternal rewards. So today in our lesson, Jesus explains to his disciples that he would have to suffer and be killed. He tells them that to be his disciples, they too would have to do some hard things and to make sacrifices. You know, life isn't always easy, and following Jesus isn't always easy, but it's worth it. The cost that Jesus had to pay for our salvation wasn't easy, but it was worth it. In the book of Hebrews, chapter 12, verse 2, It says we must keep our eyes on Jesus, who endured the shame of being nailed to a cross, because he knew later he would be glad that he did. Because through his death, we would have the privilege of being called the sons of God. He paid the price for sin's punishment that he did not owe. And we owed a sin debt that we could not pay. So if you have your Bibles, let's turn to the Gospel of Matthew, chapter 16, verse 21 through 27. All right. So verse 21 says, "From that time on, Jesus began to explain to his disciples that he must go to Jerusalem and suffer many things at the hands of the elders, the chief priests, and the teachers of the law, and that he must be killed and on the third day be raised to life." Verse 22 says, Peter took him aside and began to rebuke him, which means he began to speak harshly to him. He said, "Never, Lord, this will never happen to you." Verse 23 says, Jesus turned and said to Peter, "Get behind me, Satan. You are a stumbling block to me. You do not have in mind the concerns of God, but only human concerns." In verse 21, Jesus is telling his disciples of what lies ahead. That he will, he will suffer. But what kind of suffering did Jesus have to go through? Well, he was beaten, he was bruised, he was spit on, and nails would be driven through his hands and his feet, and a crown of thorns would be placed on his head, and he would be hung on the cross to die. But in verse 22, Peter rebukes Jesus and said, "No, Jesus, this won't happen to you." In other words, you can't die. He didn't want to think about the possibility of Jesus suffering. In verse 22, Jesus says to Peter, "Get behind me, Satan." Here he tells Peter that his mission is not about comfort and ease, but about greater things, godly concerns. Jesus knew that Peter was more concerned about not suffering than about the things that please God, which is more important. He also knew that Satan was using Peter to keep him from accomplishing his mission. Anyone or anything that keeps us from following Jesus is not coming from God. God's Spirit in us will never work against the things that be of God. Sometimes, we face choices between doing something easy and comfortable and doing something that is hard. Why are hard things sometimes better to choose, though? How can you make those tough decisions? Well, Jesus knew his death was going to be difficult, but necessary. Sometimes for us, things will be difficult, but we know that Jesus already conquered the hardest things, like dying for our sake. Jesus reminded his followers of what it will cost them to seek and serve him. But there is a beautiful blessing that goes along with doing the tough things. Then Jesus said to disciples in verse 24, "Whoever wants to be my disciples must deny themselves and take up their cross and follow me." What is Jesus saying? If you want to follow me, you must deny yourself. Well, to deny self means to refrain or not doing something that makes us feel good at the moment. When we fast, we are denying ourselves by giving up food or entertainment to give ourselves to God in prayer, in reading our Bible, in worshiping Him, all that to please God. Verse 25 says, "For whoever wants to save their life will lose it, but whoever loses their life for me will find it." What Jesus is saying here is that if we choose not to give up our own ways and not put God first, then in the end, we will lose our lives when it comes to eternity with God. But if we deny ourselves or give up temporary pleasures, then in the end, we will have eternal joy, and even joy while we are here on earth serving God. In other words, sometimes we have to give up now to gain something better. Now, do you think this means that Jesus don't want us to have fun? He doesn't want us to enjoy life? I don't think so. No, it doesn't. But what he is saying is that if we have to make a choice between serving God or serving ourselves, then we should always choose to please God over ourselves, or what makes us comfortable. So verse 26, "What good will it be for someone to gain the whole world, yet forfeit or lose their soul? Or what can we give in exchange for our souls?" What is a soul? Well, I'm glad you asked. Everybody has a soul of its own. The soul is the spiritual part of a person that gives life to the body. It is the most important part of who we are. The soul is the part of man which thinks and reason, express emotions, and the part of us that God gives salvation. Our souls are our own to make choices and express ourselves, but all souls belong to God. One soul is worth more than all of the world. Our own souls are of greater value to us than all the wealth, the honor, the pleasures of this present time. There is nothing in this world worth losing our souls to. Verse 27 says, "For the Son of Man is going to come in his Father's glory with his angels, and then he will reward each person according to what they have done." Just like our parents or teachers reward us for doing a good job or completing an assignment, when we stand before God at the end of time, God will reward us according to how we completed our assignment and our work here on earth. So, what does it mean to take up our cross and follow Jesus, and what does it cost to follow Christ? It means giving our lives to love and please God. Will we have to die for our beliefs? Well, most of us may not have to give up our physical life or die physically to follow Jesus, but we must be willing to serve Jesus whatever it may cost. Most of Jesus' first disciples were killed, did give up their life for their faith in Jesus. But remember, Jesus made the biggest sacrifice of all. For God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten Son. So we need to be willing to make sacrifices and do some hard things, but in the end, eternal life is worth more than all the sacrifice and the sufferings we go through. People chase after many things. such as being popular, having lots of money, and more. But none of those things can be compared with knowing God and following Him. Okay, so let's review what we talked about. All right, number one, to be a follower of Christ, we must blank ourselves. Is it please ourselves or deny ourselves? Which one? That's right. We have to deny ourselves. Okay, number two, Jesus said to take up your blank and blank me. Is it Jesus said take up your baseball bat or cross? Did you say cross? Yes, that's correct. All right, Jesus said take up our cross and leave me or follow me. Which one? Is it to leave me or follow Him? That's right. Follow Him. All right, number three. Whoever blank his life for the cause of Christ will find it. Is it whoever gain his life for the cause of Christ or lose his life for the cause of Christ will find it? Is it gain or lose? All right, it's whoever lose his life for the cause of Christ will find it. All right, the last one.